Not long ago, on the 21st of October this year, actually a couple of days ago, as at the time of this recording, I put out a post on nairaland.com. For those of you who are not Nigerians, Nairaland is Naira, that's Naira, and then land, land.com, spelled together, no underscore, no space. Naira is the local currency that we have over here in Nigeria. So, nairaland.com, it's, how do I describe it? It's one of those websites. I wouldn't exactly say it's like Reddit. Okay, I wouldn't say it's like Reddit because Reddit people need to have accounts. Okay, let's just say it's like Reddit. Let's call it the Nigerian Reddit for now, where people put up lots of interesting topics on all kinds of conceivable things, whether it's sex, business, fashion, politics, religion, you name it. If you can find it, if you can talk about it in civil discourse, you can find it on Nairaland. And in fact, let's say sometimes the discourse is not so civil. I mean, for those of you who are used to the Reddit culture, you probably know what it is that I am talking about. Now, since the conversation on Nairaland is not so, what's that word? Salutary. It's not so nice. I figured that if I started posting on Nairaland, I'd be able to kill two birds with one stone. I'd be able to find a new audience for my ideas about things sales related and personal selling. And also, I might also be able to raise the level of discourse that we have on nairaland.com, which can be very toxic, clickbaity, controversial, spammy. I figure that my writing would be um, a breath of fresh air for some folks, at least, for people who are looking for this kind of content, edifying content from a business perspective. So I've been writing on Nairaland.com for a while. I think the articles are doing reasonably okay because I don't promote them, but it's like whenever I put out a new post, it starts off with about 30 something views, and the older ones go into the hundreds. I mean, the much, much, much older ones, because I've been going at this for a while, and I noticed that the older ones have more traction. So it looks like it's going okay. And so, on this day in question, on October the 21st, I put up a topic, a post about how to start a conversation with a potential customer. Now, the reason why I titled it that, or the reason why I talk about it in these kinds of ways, trying to reduce sales to simple conversations, is just so that the average person can appreciate that sales is just simply a conversation, and so it doesn't have to be so scary. So when your boss says go out and sell, or when you think, okay, I'm about to start my new business, selling snails, but I don't like selling. I'd like for the average person to realize that sales is nothing more than a conversation. So if I have a sales farm and I'm going to start selling snails, or let's say my mom has a snail farm and she wants us to help out with the business, and I'm going to start selling snails, really, I should just be looking for for opportunities to have conversations about snails, whether online or off. And eventually, I'm going to be able to convert some of those into business opportunities. So I'd like people to understand that selling is nothing more than just having a conversation. Whether you have a hair salon, whether you sell snails, whether you sell inverter batteries, or whether you're a wedding photographer or videographer. Sales, selling, it's all a conversation. And when you realize that it's a conversation, then it's a lot easier. And so that's the reason why the Instagram handle is called sales conversations, sales underscore conversations. And that's the reason why if you run into me at any of your training sessions, if I happen to be having a session for your business or any seminar that you happen to be attending, you're going to hear a lot about me talking about sales as a conversation. So, how do you start a conversation with a potential customer? Now, the gist of the post was this, that it's not easy to start off conversations. Most people don't um, look forward to starting off conversations with potential customers, with total strangers, because they understand that it's not easy to start toasting people. Or toasting is an old, okay, well, it's an English word. I was going to say Nigerian word. But toasting is old Nigerian slang for how you would go about courting someone, courting a member of the opposite sex to get into a relationship with you. So it's not easy to start toasting, cajoling, whatever word it is that you're going to use when you have money on your mind. Because when you do, the person is going to see right through you and your selfish motives. So that's the obvious fear. But you can't start having conversations about snails, left, right, and center, whether online or off, because eventually the person is going to see through you and through your motives that, of course, you want to talk about snails because your mom has a snail farm and she wants you to support her. So that's why you're talking about snails. And because of that, none of us want to appear selfish. We don't want to be scummy. We don't want to seem like a scam artist. And so the average person just stays put. Because if you start talking about your snails, you find that you're talking about snails 247. And after a while, people start running away from you like, oh, there's that guy. Kunle is coming again. He's going to go on and on about this snail thing, about how snails are a good source of vitamin A or vitamin whatever, and how they're a delicacy, and this and this and that and that, and these are the health benefits, or this is how it's an aphrodisiac, and blah 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 blah. And so folks start running away from you because, oh, that's uh, Kunle, this snail guy, really slimy. Now the good news is that you can start off having conversations with people and not come off as a scammer if you follow some simple guidelines that sales professionals have used since the dawn of time. Now, what are the guidelines and what are the principles? There are a couple of them, but the first is to realize that it's not about you. It's about the customer on the other end of the conversation. So if you're always coming at this whole snail thing from you because you have to sell snails and you have to help your mom move uh, merchandise, can we call snails merchandise? Anyway, whatever. Nigerians would say move market. So if you're trying to move your market or trying to move your merchandise, then you're going to come across as slimy all the time when people see you and they know that you're going to open your mouth and start talking about snails. So you have to realize that the conversation is not about you, it's about the person on the other end of the conversation. So you have to come into the conversation with enthusiasm and start talking about not your product and your service, but you have to make the conversation about them and their needs. So how do you achieve that? You achieve that by asking simple conversational questions. And that was the thrust of the post, basically. I didn't go into what kinds of questions you would need to ask, but although in this case, you wouldn't come into the conversation saying, oh, my dear friend, I have good news for you. Snails are the best thing since sliced bread because of vitamin A, because they're an aphrodisiac, and because they are a what's that word? They're a delicacy. So if you buy my mom's snails and we pepper them up nicely for you and you serve them to your girlfriend, it's going to be three in one. Number one, you're serving her a delicacy, so it shows that you're a big boy, you've got lots of dough. Number two, it's an aphrodisiac. If both of you eat it, it means that you're going to have a happy ending. And then number three, both of you are going to get some vitamin A out of it, so it's highly nutritious. So if you're going around having those kinds of conversations, then people are going to run away from you. But if you start with simple, open-ended conversations like, "Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? How do you like to spend your time? Are you a Netflix and chill kind of person? What do you and Madame chill with? What kind of snacks do you guys like? Or where do you hang out? Or how do you hang out?" If you start the conversation building it around what their culinary interests are, what their culinary tastes already are, you can find a way to weave snails into the conversation later on in the future. And that one appears less slimy because you made the conversation about them. But most importantly, if you start the conversation and you find out that this guy is not a seafood person, the person is purely a meathead, then you know that this might not be a potential customer for you because seafood, snails, some people consider snails seafood. My wife is one of them. The first time she told me, back then we're still dating, I said, look, snails are not seafood. Snails are in the gardens, they're eating leaves and blah 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 blah. And she started telling me about underwater snails, and I just thought, you're a couple, and then after a while, you guys just start having these pointless arguments. And I just thought it was a pointless argument. I mean, both of us arguing about snails and how can you classify snails as seafood? Until one day, we're going to a restaurant and snail is on the menu as seafood. So I hop on the Google machine and I find out that yes, they are underwater snails and they also are land snails. And for some reason, some restaurants will classify snails as seafood, and some other people will not. So yeah, if you're like me who was thinking underwater snails, what are you talking about? Yes, they are underwater snails that people also eat. But I guess people from the Niger Delta region of the country already know about that, and some of us were just slow. Um, some of us were just slow on the pickup. We didn't find out about these things. on time. Anyway, where was I? So yes, if you're asking open questions about the person's culinary taste, you already find out that he or she is a meathead, and so snail is off the menu, or maybe snail is off the menu for taboo, cultural taboos, religious taboos, stuff like that. So you're better off approaching the conversation, asking open-ended questions. And then somebody responded. The name he gave was a Senior Man 715. So Senior Man 715, if you happen to be listening to the podcast, big ups to you for reading the post, and then also thank you very much for your comment. And of course, that's a very Nigerian name, Senior Man. Is a way that you give how do I put it? You hail people. How do you? What's the word for hail? Hmm. How do I explain hail to a non-Nigerian audience? Ah, well, anyways, you just see someone say, "Hey, senior man." That's a way of giving somebody props, bigging the person up, trying to make the person feel all important, make the person feel like he's a big man. So, senior man 715, definitely a Nigerian. So, senior man says that to make the conversation about, to move the conversation forward, what he said was ask questions, but not related to the sale. And so that's the reason why I'm making this post today. Because there are lots of people who assume that in order to move the business relationship forward, you just need to ask open ended questions and don't ask questions related to the sale. Say absolutely nothing about snails, or say absolutely nothing about inverters, or say absolutely nothing about the makeup that you sell. And I responded to him by saying that, well, yes, he did anticipate my next post because in the next post I gave examples about open ended questions that you can ask. But the thing is, you do have to start asking questions related to the sale at some point. If you sell snails and you're spending all the time talking to everybody about everything under the sun, talking about Manchester United, talking about the state of the economy, talking about the runner ups in the elections, talking about what else? Pokemon or whatever. I don't know whatever it is you guys are going to be talking about. If you're talking about everything under the sun, people are going to thank you for a wonderful conversation and then they're going to leave. So if you sell snails, eventually you're going to have to start talking about snails. If you sell handbags, eventually you're going to have to start talking about handbags. And if you sell inverter batteries, eventually you're going to have to narrow it down to inverter batteries, solar panels, and blah, 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 stuff like that. So this whole thing about asking questions and engaging in conversations not related to the sale, it's good because it might make you likable, but it's not going to get you a lot of money. So yes, we start off with what the person's culinary habits are, what their likes are, and things like that. But eventually, we have to get to the point where we say, okay, if you want to have a nice chill out evening with Madame, or if you want to cook something real nice for your husband, have you considered snails? Because snails can be cooked like this, they can be mixed with this vegetable, they can be mixed with that. Would that be something you're open to? Eventually, you have to take the conversation down that route and start asking those sorts of questions. If not, you're not going to be able to sell any snails. So, senior man, you are in the right frame of mind that we shouldn't make it too salesy and we shouldn't make everything related to the sale. We shouldn't make everything related to our snails or to our inverter batteries or to our handbags, if that's what it is that we sell. But eventually, we're going to have to find ways of introducing things that are related to the sale, or else we're going to be really popular and have lots of friends all over the place, but we're not going to sell any snails, we're not going to move merchandise, we're not going to move market. But that's going to be something that I'll talk about in a future episode after I have written the post, the follow up to Senior Man, giving examples about how you ought to make that transition. Because right now we've done close to 15 minutes and I've been keeping cool to between 1 and 10 minutes so far. So I'll just bring this episode to a close. So thank you very much for listening to today's recording. Thanks for your time and attention. Remember, you guys can ask me anything on WhatsApp. You just hit me up on 080 6466 2140. Again, that is 080 6466 2140. And the country code is +234 for Nigeria. Again, the country is Nigeria and the country code is +234. So hit me up, ask me anything. I'll be launching a newsletter soon. You guys will also be able to subscribe via WhatsApp. I'll let you guys know about that, the instructions, when the newsletter becomes live. So thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.